Hey, welcome to Car Guy Confessions, brought to you by ARP. I'm Jeff Smith. This is my car buddy Cam Benty and car builder Steve Strope, and we're going to tell you some stories.
Welcome to another episode of Car Guy Confessions with Jeff Smith, brought to you by our friends at arp-bolts.com. And, of course, we want to give a shout-out to our friends at the Grand National Roadster Show. They put us up in this nice little place here in the corner on Building 5, and we're having a good time. And we're here with my good friend, Evan Perkins.
Thanks, Jeff. Happy to be here.
And so I don't remember exactly where we originally met. You were working for...
I do. I remember the day and the place.
Okay.
I was working for ProMedia as the then staff editor of Fastest Streetcar.
Okay.
And it was a Nitto Tire test day.
Really?
When they had just come out with the Nitto Tire drag racing video game. And you were not thrilled with the ETs. They were a little bit inaccurate, if I remember.
That's funny.
That's pretty good, right?
I don't remember that at all.
No, I
cool.
absolutely remember.
That's great, yeah. So, but before that, so how did you get this start, Well, first of all, let's talk about what you're doing right now. Because
sure.
because we actually work together.
Yeah, so I am the director of digital content for Hemmings.
Okay.
So all of the, collector car, tech, how-to, event coverage, pretty much everything we did at the magazines, we can find that on Hemmings.com.
Right.
But we also have a marketplace for buying and selling used collector cars.
Right.
So a big part of what I do is trying to drive traffic to that marketplace and trying to let people know, what cars are out there, how much you should pay for one, what to do with it once you own it.
Right.
So it's a lot of everything at once.
Yeah. I get a feed every day, from you guys.
That's right.
Yeah.
We do our E-Daily.
Yeah.
It's honestly a huge send. It is it's a cool audience, a whole bunch of dedicated people, and I mean it's like a 56% open rate, which for email sends, that's high.
Wow.
So half of our audience reads everything my team puts out every day, and that's a pretty nice feeling.
That is.
People
and
see
the
what we
beauty
do.
of that is with digital, you see what they read, you spend see how much time they spend on their stuff?
We do, and it's great because not only does it tell us that things are working, but we can see what's working and we can better structure and we can go, okay, more of this, less of that. Let's try this.
Because print was more like voodoo. You had to kind of like a Ouija board where you had your newsstand sales, but you really didn't know exactly what was especially if something really worked well, you hoped it was your lead story in the for the cover, but you don't really know.
And it was a lot of biting your fingernails while you waited for those analytics to come in.
3 months to find out whether or not this was going to work, right? From the initial idea to the execution, and then another month to get some kind of returns. And
it was a little bit quicker when I came into the print world because there was some digital transmission of that data, but I can't imagine sending a magazine out in the dead of winter and hoping that it sold well.
And the old school deal was when I was still in school, we would, at the gas station I worked at, we would service this van that did circulation, right? They take the magazines and newsstands and everything. And I always wondered why in the back of that guy's van there were all these magazines with the covers ripped off. And what they did was that they would rip the cover off, stack them, and send them to whoever was establishing what the actual sell-through was. So if you put 10 magazines on the newsstand and you sold 5 of them, then when the guy brought the next month out, then he took the old what was left and brought them back, put them in the van, and they ripped the covers off.
And then they mail the covers and count them?
And then they would count the covers that were left back. And then if you gave them back 4, that means you sold 6. And then you got a percentage of sell-through. And that's what we lived and died by, right?
That hurts a little bit. That's like it's like scalping your victim.
That's right.
That would be hard.
And I never understood that until one day I was like, hey, that's why that happened, So I asked somebody in circulation,
That's funny how the sausage is made, I guess.
Yeah, because they didn't want the whole magazine back because it's heavy.
Sure.
Right? I could ship that.
I've saved every magazine I've ever contributed to, and it's probably about 300 pounds.
Oh, yeah, it's heavy.
You'd know.
I know. Boy, I've got a full collection. Not full. I got 64 to present hot rod and 67 because the magazines I started buying first was Carcraft. That's the book that really talked to me the whole time.
That's the book.
I'm old school today. I'm wearing my Carcraft shirt.
That's the book that I never got to be a staff member or an editor of. And that was my favorite book growing up. I was a diehard Carcraft fan.
So I think I've told this story before, but I was 14 years old. It's 1968. Terry Cook was a staff writer on Carcraft magazine, and he did a series called How to Build a Junior Stocker, because the junior stockers, or essentially stock eliminator cars, that was the big deal. And of course all the muscle cars were out at that time, so GM, Ford, Chrysler were pouring thousands and thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars probably into deal. The junior stockers were generally the lower-powered stock class cars. And so he just followed along with a guy named Joe Allred, and they built a 57 wagon. And it was like, I don't know, J-stock automatic with a 283 or something like that. And I just fell in love with it. I just thought that was the neatest thing I'd ever seen.
That's
I
cool.
wanted to build one. At 14, I wanted to build one. And from then on, that book talked to me. You know? So did you have any kind of a similar deal where the book really talked to you?
Oh, it was CarCraft.
It was
sure.
CarCraft?
I mean, so I don't know how I got into cars. I really don't have an explanation for it. No one in my family is into cars. You know, my neighbor, you know, next door, we kind of came into it together, but we it just found us. You know, and it was like night and day. One day I was just agnostic to how I got to and from places, and then the next day it was like, this is all I care about, and it's been like that ever since.
Okay, so there's not like a pinnacle moment necessarily?
No, I just, all of a sudden I started noticing them. And
my deal was, I think I was, let's see, this is 1964, so I was 10 years old, and I turned the corner. We were living out here in California, in Santa Ana. Turned the corner to walk home after school, and a family friend had just got out of the Coast Guard and bought a brand new 64 Corvette. And I went, what is that?
That's cool.
And I, you know, I didn't even know what a Corvette was. And that was like, that was the defining moment. And so I thought, I need to know more about this. What is this? He took me for a ride, and we were like, whoa.
That's cool. Yeah, I didn't really have a defining moment that brought me, you know, into the hobby. But I definitely had some defining moments that, you know, kind of carved my trajectory in the industry. So
what got you into print? What was your?
So I started in college working for a company called Speed Ventures. My brother-in-law, today he's my brother-in-law, he raced through them. They would rent tracks and do track days. And I was just enamored with it. And he said, well, I know the owner. I'll talk to the owner and see if they need some help. So the guy's like, yeah, sure, $300 a day, drive out, you know, I'll give you a list of things to do. So I would leave college. I would drive from Pomona, California to Monterey in the middle of the night, be at the track by 6 in the morning.
That's a hike.
Didn't sleep.
Oh boy,
You know, worked grid, any menial position you can think of. Like, I did it just to be around cars. And I've got some cool stories from that. But I was doing that, and then one day we were working at Fontana, California Speedway, which is gone. How sad is that?
Sad.
So I was working there, and there was an autocross in the middle of the infield. And there's this guy shooting pictures of the autocross, and he had a CarCraft shirt on. And I walked up to him. This would have been like 2012. So I walked up to him and I said, hey, do you work for CarCraft? And he was like, yeah, I do. Real soft-spoken. It was John.
Oh, it was McGann,
So, poor guy gives me his business card, and I called him every single day for probably 6 months trying to get an internship. I'll work for free, just let me in the door. And bless his heart, John is such a good human being.
He is a fantastic
he answered
guy.
Every single time. This was his office, like, desk phone that I was calling. I don't even know if he had a cell phone, if any of us did then. But
probably not.
I called him every day, and he, to his credit, he got me an internship. But I had already gotten a job. I got the job at ProMedia for a whopping $28,500 a year, complete with an hour and a half commute to Orange County from where I lived in the Inland Empire. But it was a start, you know. And I met Scott Sparrow, who's my first boss, my first editor ever, who is still one of my closest friends. Amazing person. And then once I kind of got my foot in the door, they actually exited Scott from the company when I was about 3 months in to my first staff job. And there was nobody left to do the job. It was just me. I was the only editorial person in the building. And they said, well, you know, we don't want to call you an editor yet, but we're going to let you try to do the job.
And what that really means is we don't want to pay you.
There's probably some of that. But they, to their credit, about 6 months later, they're like, okay, he can do the job. And I got a little raise.
You got your spurs.
Yep. So I got my little chunk, and I kept doing it. I think I did it for about 2 years. Went over to a digital startup, which was really just biding time until I could get into, I guess it was the Enthusiast Network at the time. Whatever acronym they were on at that stage.
Whatever was that week.
But Doug Glad called me and said, hey, I think we want you to come interview for Super Chevy. And that interview was with Brian Brennan and Ed Zinke. Two pretty great people in this industry.
Absolutely.
So they liked me. Ed always comments that I had grease under my fingernails, and my collared shirt didn't look like it got a lot of use. He was dead on. That's exactly true. I still have the only suit I own is the one I wore to prom, and it still fits. But that's the only suit in my closet.
That's a compliment right there.
So I got to work for those guys. I got to work for Tim Foss, and I mean, just so many great people in that Orange County building.
Yeah.
And it was a blast. I loved it. I mean, I loved the group that we worked with. We had Kev Elliott, who's from England. So every day at 2:00 we did tea time, which was something I was unaccustomed to. But the whole editorial staff would sit down and have tea and digestive biscuits, and it was like, don't you bring your cell phone? Don't you answer your email? This is 30 minutes every day, and it was.
That's interesting.
Looking back, it was such a cool time.
Yeah. I should try that.
I mean, they're supposedly they're good for digestives, but they're covered in chocolate, and I think it's just an excuse to eat a cookie.
Yeah, exactly.
But it was a great place to be, and then from there, Hot Rod. Did that for a couple of years. And that was fantastic.
So we need to talk about that for a little bit, because I think you were probably one of the younger editors at Hot Rod Magazine.
Yeah,
right?
I am the youngest to have ever sat in the seat.
Yeah. So what was that like?
It's a lot. It's a big book. It's a historic book. There's a lot of money writing on that book. There's a lot of events associated with that book, Drag Week and Power Tour, which started off with these grassroots, really enthusiast-focused, just fun things that editors went out and did that have grown into multi-million-dollar, I don't even know how many cars go on it, but it's an obscene amount of vehicles.
And did the vastness of it ever, or did you just look at it as this is what I'm doing right now and don't think about necessarily the history?
I mean, I think like any other print editor, it's month by month.
Yeah.
It's issue by issue. It's can we fill pages? Can we can we fill them with good stuff? Are we aware of what's going on in our world? Are we talking to the right people?
Yep.
Are we building the right things?
Right.
So issue by issue. I didn't have a problem with it, but I had some really good people there.
Yeah.
And
I know we talk quite often.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, it takes a village to run a magazine. It really does.
It does. Yeah.
But it's neat. It's such a historic thing. It was there before me. It'll be there after me, and it's just neat to have carved my little chunk out of it.
And now there's some changes afloat because they just sold it to Hearst Publishing.
Yep.
So it'll be interesting. McGann is here. We haven't spoken yet, but I think we'll get him on the show. And that's going to be an interesting deal to find out. Say it's probably way too early yet to get an idea of exactly what's going to go on, but at the same time, it's like, I mean, this is good because for the first time since EMAP, well, I don't remember when that was.
It's actually owned by a publishing company?
Owned by a real publishing company as opposed to a bunch of bean counters. And I'm hoping, I'm praying that there's, because it's a quarterly right now. Hot Rod's a quarterly, and it doesn't deserve that.
No, it needs to be a monthly.
Than that.
Not only does Hot Rod deserve that, John deserves that.
Yes.
Because John deserved to be in that seat a long time before he finally got there.
Because for a while, they just abused him, because when they killed all those books, because I said right away when I heard that, I was like, well, dude, anything you need from me, I'll be more than happy to help you. And he said they gave me zero money to work with. So what it was, so I don't know if any of the viewers here remember this time, but the magazine came out, and this is not his fault. Magazine came out, and I would get it, and I would look at it and go,
everything's been online before.
Well, what happened was when they killed all the books, they didn't give them a budget. What they said was, you're just going to run all this stuff that was for the next 3 months for all these titles. Anything that would fit, just put it in your magazine. Well, there's no cohesiveness to it. There's no consistency to it. And so it had that kind of feel. I knew why, right? And then I said, can I help you? And he goes, they gave me no money. He couldn't even travel anywhere.
That
sucks. So it's just, and I know that the book lost a lot of people in that period of time, because you don't have that. I mean, you got to spend money to make money.
Yeah.
And it's sad that happened, and now they've got this huge climb to try and get back out of it. But I think it can be done.
I'm optimistic.
And hopefully people will help. I'd be more than happy to help. I think it'd be great.
Same.
So,
I mean, when I moved over to the marketing side, which is a little bit calmer, you get to be home more. I actually had a chance to marry my wife and make some children. So let's
talk about that for a second, because you'd been editor for about 2 years. How long was it?
Yeah, I think it was about 2.5 years.
2.5 years.
Yep.
Then you made a decision.
I knew where my life was going if I stayed there, and I know what it takes to run that book and the time required. I also don't live in LA and was not paid well enough to live in LA, so I was driving from Pomona to El Segundo, so Pomona to LAX every single day.
brutal.
Work from home was not a thing then.
And you were going in with everybody else going in.
Yeah, it was about 2 hours to get there, and there were days where it was 3 hours coming home.
Yes.
And
That's just
going,
brutal.
do I...
Just 5 hours out of your life.
Yeah, so you're going, do I sleep on the floor of the office, or do I go home and see my fiance at the time tonight? And that got old pretty quickly. It's just... It was just too much. You know, it's just too much time. Not too much driving. Don't mind the driving. Still like road trips. But don't, just losing
Not when you're
5
forced
hours.
to.
Losing 5 hours out a day when you're home, and then there's the travel, which, as you know, that's a lot of travel.
Yeah, because the editor of Hot Rod is expected to be everywhere.
Yeah.
And that got old for me too.
It's a hell of a road show.
It is.
But it's a neat job. It's cool to have done it, to understand it, and to have met some of those people. Like I got to cover Danny Thompson going back to Bonneville in his dad's car.
Great.
I got to hand him, an issue with him on the cover that Holley Martin shot, one of my favorite covers I've ever done. Give it to Danny Thompson and watch him tear up. It's such a cool photo. It's the one looking out of the cockpit.
I remember
Challenger
that.
2.
I remember that because I thought, wow, this is a ballsy cover choice.
It was
really ballsy, but I loved it.
Not a great seller. Not a great seller, but I don't regret it.
People, I don't know if they, without being critical of the industry, but it's like I think sometimes people just don't get it, because you're putting you in Danny Thompson's car.
It was for a niche group of hot rod people.
True.
And those people that it was for, they appreciated it.
Oh yeah, I thought it was fantastic. So so you've done a lot of stuff. So then left Hot Rod, and then
left Hot Rod, worked for JE Pistons.
Okay.
I'm a huge engine guy. It's what I love. I would rather build an engine than a car. I love engines. I think they're so fascinating.
You and I are
we've
brothers
talked a lot
because
about that.
Yep.
So I did that for a while. Really got to learn the ins and outs of, because we build engines, right? And we know the parts that go in them, but there is like another level of the part itself.
Oh yeah.
You're not talking about forged versus cast. You're talking about, a forged side relief versus a full skirted, and you're looking at double broach pin oiling versus forced oiling, and there is so much more to learn, and it made me such a better engine builder to understand all that stuff. Then they expanded, and we went from just doing pistons to pistons, rod, steel rods, aluminum rods, cranks, blocks, heads, intakes, and you had to learn all of it.
All that stuff.
You get on the phone with a customer, you go to a trade show, and someone starts asking questions. This is your job to know.
That's right.
And I used to hold down the fort.
You're representing the company. Yeah. I was like,
MPMC, when people come in and say, well, this is what I'm building, what do you recommend? And you're like, oh, I don't even know where to start. I need more detail. But I enjoyed talking about it.
Yeah.
In terms of the marketing jobs that I had, that was the product I liked talking about the most.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
exactly.
Did it for them. Things got weird during COVID. Yeah, it was not a good place to be. Lots of layoffs, lots of bad decision making, and I won't throw anyone under the bus, but my boss was let go, and he popped back up at Holley.
Right.
And I reached out and said, "Can I come? Because this isn't good. What's going on here?" So then I got to work at Holley.
So we actually did some stuff together at Race Winning Brands with the JE, and then basically I followed you. With where you just say, well, we're at Holley now, we're going to do the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, the idea is just to own the content.
Yeah.
Right? If someone wants to know how something works or what product they should put in their engine, we want to own all the good, technical content that gives them the answer.
Right. So when you ask the question from Google,
yeah,
you want your story to come up or your piece to come up first.
Right. So when you wanted to know, what the difference between a billet piston and a forged piston was in strength, and why do they do it two ways, which one's better, I think you might have written that story.
I may have.
And it's still there. And you feel like the first company that can answer that question for you, they've got a good head start in getting your money.
Yes, exactly. Because they're answering my question, so they know what I'm asking. They know what I'm looking for. Yeah. So then Holley was quite a while, wasn't it?
About 3 years.
3 years, yeah.
3 years.
Yeah.
Holley was great. Bill Tishner they say never meet your heroes, but man, the guy holds up.
Oh yeah.
He's the real deal. Good
AMC
human being.
Guy.
Yeah.
AMC guy.
I shot a feature on his car. I had Luke Manel shoot a feature on his car.
Ah, cool.
He's like, why do you want to shoot my car? I'm like, Trust me, I want to shoot your car.
I want to shoot your car.
So I'm going to write that one. But yeah, Holley was great. I was there when they went public, so I got to be part of an IPO process and understand what it's like for a private equity company to hit the New York Stock Exchange. And that was a ride, but it was really interesting to be a part of it and learn what's going on. And
cool.
You know, I'm a greasy car guy. I don't do well with stocks.
Yeah,
you know, I know they're important. I just don't know what to do with them.
It's voodoo to me.
Yeah, stick with what I know, and that's pretty much just hot rod stuff. But yeah, we are engine enthusiasts, aren't we?
Yep. And then you moved to Hemmings.
Yeah. Matt Boyce went over to Hemmings, and Doug Ladd was there, and they called and said, "Hey, we're looking for somebody to run, our digital department."
Yeah.
And I said, "Sure." I really miss editorial, and I love writing stories. I love telling people stories. But, man, when I first went over to marketing, I was freelancing because I wanted to stay connected to the magazines. That's where my heart and soul is.
Sure.
I wrote a feature or text story every day of the week for probably about 6 months.
Yikes.
And I did, I know you don't like features, but what I would do...
It's not that I don't like them, it's just that they become very repetitive very
I believe
quickly.
you've used the phrase, slit my wrists.
Yeah.
But what I did with
to
it
say that.
was I had this commute home. It was about 2 hours. That's California. There's back before work from home was a thing, there was no way around it.
Yeah.
So what I would do is I would leave my office and I would call whoever I was assigned to write a feature on. And I would talk to some stranger about their car for about an hour on a recorder. And then about halfway home, I would get to a Starbucks, and I would transcribe the recording, and then I would write the story, and then I would drive the rest of the way home.
There you go.
I mean,
there's a that's a really good idea.
And it was,
I like that.
It made the commute shorter.
Sure.
I made money on the way home.
Distracted you from what the
Right, and then the people that I was talking to were Tom Nelson. John Causey.
Okay.
Yeah, I wrote all the Take Fives for a year.
Okay.
So, I mean, it didn't feel like work.
Yeah.
I got to talk to my heroes.
Yeah.
I got to tell their stories.
Sure.
Even if it was just some guy that, John McGann founded a car show who had a really nice car. That guy was so excited to talk about his car. It was just a conversation, and the recorder was going, and I would type it up and write a story.
Hey, we'd like to thank our sponsor, ARP-bolts.com. We got a fantastic little backdrop here. They make an outstanding series of bolts, almost anything you would need for engines, chassis, things like that. In fact, we were at lunch today, and a guy asked you about the bolt on the back of your shirt, and and I said, well, it's really about a head bolt. They neck the stem down of the bolt on a short, small block Chevy head bolt, so the clamp load is even across 3 different head bolt lengths on a small block Chevy. And, so that's the kind of technology that you get out of ARP. And we've all got stories on all that stuff.
Well, for a translation of what he said, call ARPbolts.com.
But the message is that you can't get any better than that.
No, you cannot.
There you go.
Nope.
We'd like to thank our friends at InTheGarageMedia.com. They have 3 fantastic magazines. They've got Classic Truck Performance. They have Modern Rotting, and my favorite, All Chevy Performance, with Nick, my buddy Nick, is the editor.
Biased.
So yes, of course. But it's a fantastic book. They're doing print media, which is of course our favorite. So
in color and everything.
In color and everything, and you can get your car on the cover of one of those books, which is a fun
that's a
deal.
lot.
Great tech.
Great tech.
By you
not always written by me,
famous
but
people.
Yeah.
Famous people
Not
have written all the
always
tech.
written by me.
That's right.
Just
So
pick it
check
up and
them out
read it.
at InTheGarageMedia.com, and they're our friends, and they will thank you.
And that's really the beauty, I think, of this job, was why it was so much fun, was that we get a chance to talk to enthusiasts. They're thrilled to talk to us, or we have the chance. The door is open for us because we're media, especially with Hot Rod Magazine and big magazines like that people that you might have trouble getting to talk to, they will talk to you, because, as long as you did your story correctly, if you...
I mean, if it's a hobby, right? So, your passion for this ebbs and flows.
Yeah.
All you need to do when you're in a rut is just go talk to someone that still loves their car as much as the first day they got it. And you're like, I'm back.
Yeah.
I get why I do
Okay,
this.
I understand now.
Yep. I'm home again.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, cool. Yeah. So, let's talk about the Pontiac.
Sure.
Your motor, because you just sent me a text, last week. And
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
run through the motor for us.
Sure. So I've got a 70 GTO, and it had a 400. I think it was the 350 horsepower 400 in it, and it was a total like barn find, patina car. It had been in a warehouse for 25 years. I traded my Camaro for it because it was all complete, and I've always wanted a GTO. That's the dream car for me. And then it became, do I build a Pontiac, which I know will be more expensive and less powerful than a typical Chevrolet, just from parts availability and what we know we can do with those motors. And I was like, well, I have this idea that the original block should stay in the car.
Okay.
And then I need to do as much as I can to that original block. And I've done that on all my cars. I don't know where that comes from.
Yeah.
But it's like, if it was a big block car, then I'm going to build a big block. If it's a small block car, it's going to stay a small block car. It doesn't mean I don't change every nut and bolt, but there's something about keeping that block in the car. Back to voodoo, I guess.
Yeah, well, there you go.
Being a 400, I was like, okay, well, what do I do with it? I think I messaged Freiberger. I'm like, I had a 540 in the garage. I'm like, should I just put the 540 in it? And he's like, don't. Yeah. He's like, you'll get eaten alive at car shows. And I was like, all right, okay.
This Pontiac guys will hate you.
Yeah. this is the. I've had like 4 people tell me this already. All right, you're right. I'll do a Pontiac. So I was like, well, what can I do with a 400? You start looking at the traditional like head offerings, and it's D-port where there's Siamese in the center, and it's like, this is never going to make power.
Right.
So I started looking into Kaufman, and Kaufman has the high ports, which is a really great head. And I reached out, and they didn't want to do anything. So a good friend of mine, Josiah Coy, said, well, you should call DCI Motorsports.
Okay.
So I reached out and talked to Don over there. He makes a Ram Air 5 head. So a Ram Air 5 was the Pontiac like set on kill engine they almost dropped in 1970 and they didn't do. So the long story short, and the full story is on Hemmings. There's a guy named Dimitri Toth that was in the building when all this went down, and he like verified it.
Wow.
Barry Kluzik wrote it. Killer story. But
cool.
Basically, George DeLorean, John's brother, sponsored drag racer. He's at a track, sees a car running pretty good, looks in the engine bay, goes, what's going on here? Oh, it's a new tunnel port Ford head. He goes, can I borrow those? So he gets them, takes them to Pontiac Motor Division, and John's there, Dimitri's there, kind of fly on the wall. Dimitri's dad was a tool and die maker.
Okay.
So he's looking at these heads like, these will fit on a Pontiac block, because the head bolt pattern is close enough.
Really?
We could make these work.
Wow.
And everything is just close enough with, a new manifold. We could get this to run.
And this was
1969.
69, okay.
So they go through all this thing, and then they build the head. And it's a tunnel port head, which means that the push rod actually runs through the middle of the port.
Of the intake port, right.
Which is a weird way to do
and
it.
The intake port's huge, right?
Right.
Just like the tunnel port Fords were.
It's about yay big. It's a monster port. So I want to say it's about 270 to 300 cc's.
Okay.
So pretty good sized port, especially when you think about it's going on a 400 or 455 cubic inch engine.
Right.
So they actually do it. They build the head. It exists. It's a Pontiac part number, and then DeLorean John gets plucked from Pontiac to Chevrolet. Pontiac Motorsports disappears overnight.
Yeah.
This monster engine they built never becomes an RPO, never becomes a production auction.
Right.
Option, excuse me.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, what do we do with these things? So they kind of float around. They're at the parts department. If you know someone who knows someone, you can get a set. But they never really made any steam. And an original set is, there was one on eBay for like $200,000.
I was going to say unobtainium.
Right. Because Ram Air and Pontiac speak is not just the head.
Yeah.
It's the induction, camshaft, cylinder head package.
Right.
So the Ram Air 5, or switch port, as a lot of the Pontiac guys call it, they moved the intake and the exhaust valve.
Okay.
So that means you need a custom cam now.
That's right. Now you got a new cam blank.
So even though there are some heads out there, the adoption rate was really low because you had to
complex.
Right. You had to change so much to be able to do it.
Yeah.
So talk to DCI. Don goes, look, I'll give you a set at cost, which was not cheap.
Yeah.
But I wanted to do it. I've got this wild hair up my butt to build these legendary engines that have never existed before. So I do it. I get the heads, and the finished product is a 461 cubic inch Ram Air 5-headed Pontiac stroker. It's solid roller cam, 244, 266 at 50 thou. 788 on the intake lift, 768 on the exhaust. So it's a big boy.
Yeah.
So it's got the max brace, which braces the lifter bores, because unlike a Chevy, they're floating in space. There's nothing keeping them in the block, and they like to chunk themselves out. So I've got this massive brace holding everything. I have DCI's intake, but I made a top plate that holds 2,000 CFM 4-barrel throttle bodies. So it's fuel injected.
So it's fuel injected.
It really takes a village to build something like this.
Right, right.
John,
Whose fuel injection system?
it's a Holley Dominator, Holley
Dominator?
throttle bodies.
Okay.
But John Mahovitz at AccuFab helped me with the fuel rails.
Yeah.
So everybody kind of contribute a little bit here, a little bit there.
Right, right.
And I got to run it about 2 weeks ago.
At Westech.
At Westech. It was making so much torque that the dyno wouldn't hold it down low. So in the dyno I sent you, the pull starts at 4,500, but I think we missed the torque peak. I think it's actually a little bit lower than that.
Okay.
So I think it made 566 pound-feet at peak, but I think it's actually a little bit higher. So when we're going to go do an episode for Hemmings, and when I do that, we'll pull it lower and we'll see the real number.
What we had to try and do sometimes was you can load the water for the peak power at the top, and it just won't hold it down low.
Right.
Well, then what you can do is they can change the water and pull halfway up, and that way you can start lower.
Gotcha.
But you just can't finish it. Then you just
Right.
put the two curves together.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, it's Steve
and I did that a
Steve would
couple of
close
times.
his eyes and work with the dials, and it would be right. I mean, that's just how it was.
Steve was the magic man.
He really
was the magic man.
Brule is the best, and I'm so lucky. I
I tried to get him out here. I didn't know he had moved to New
he's- yeah,
Mexico.
lives Cruces
So
now.
I called him. I said, dude, I'm gonna get you on the show. And he goes,
Yeah.
I live in New Mexico, man.
He's the best.
I'm not coming out.
I still talk to him. I try to call him once a week,
Yeah,
just because
yeah.
I genuinely enjoy talking to the guy.
Sure.
We've become friends, and not really over car stuff, just in general.
Yeah.
Mostly old house fixing up is what we
Yeah,
talk about.
yeah.
But he was a huge part of me doing this, asking
yeah.
a ton of questions. It's an LS rocker with a Pontiac
Okay.
trunnion pressed in.
Okay,
Because they're
okay.
the little M10s.
Okay,
So
yeah.
it's, a converted rocker. It's a 1.8 ratio. Because
Okay.
if you try to put almost 800 lift in the tunnel of a Pontiac, core's not big
Core's
enough.
not big enough.
So
Yeah.
we had to find it at the rocker to be able to do it. And then the head.
Who did the cam?
Comp did the cam.
Okay, all right.
And Chris Potter was the engineer who did it.
Did they come up with a lobe? Was it?
I don't know what lobe he settled on, but
Okay.
Chris was a really sharp guy. I sent him my head flow data,
Okay.
every bit of information, and he spec'd out a pretty interesting grind. I mean,
Okay.
the heads flowed 360 on the intake, and then based on the exhaust flow, he actually gave me, I think it's about a 15-degree split.
Okay.
It might be a little bit different than that. I don't have the numbers on top of my head, but a
Yeah.
pretty big split intake
Yeah.
exhaust.
Yeah.
To make up for how good that intake was. And,
Right,
and, it
right.
still has kind of the dogleg Pontiac exhaust. It's a raised runner. Like
Yeah.
Don's worked it over. It's not a stock runner.
Yeah.
But 646
Cool.
at
Wow,
6,600, which
66. That's a lot of RPM for a Pontiac.
it is. That's what everybody has said.
Because 3-inch main journals, right?
Yeah, it's the smaller journal than the 455.
Okay, all
but
right.
it's still a lot of journal. You
Yeah.
saw it sitting in my garage.
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
a
it's-
chunky guy, but it did it. I mean, it's 6.
That's outstanding.
They didn't believe me it would go that high.
Yeah.
But it did, and it made power up there, and it barely drops off. It'll pull till 7 without losing much.
Wow.
I mean, I don't know how long it'll
Well,
like
testament
it
to
up
the
there.
engine builder.
Oh,
right?
thanks. So I have a lot of good people I can ask questions to.
Yep, exactly.
But that was
Exactly.
pretty fun. I think I'm going to swing the cam back 4 degrees before I go out and redyno it and see if the fact that it's 646 just kills me.
Yeah.
Like it needs to be
That's-
650. if I can get a horsepower per degree of camshaft retard, I'll be right there.
There you go. There you go. Yeah. A couple degrees retarded, then
Yep.
you should be there. Yeah,
Yep.
exactly.
That's
Yeah.
the idea.
Very cool. Very
yeah,
cool.
kind of an interesting engine. I made the top plate in the garage. And, until you get it on the dyno, you're like, please work.
Yes. So it's like, yeah.
That's the one question I never got to ask some of these famous engine builders when I did the Take 5s is, do you still get nervous when you put it on the dyno for the first time?
I
do.
I honestly say, I absolutely do. So it's just going to work.
Right.
I mean, I think I did everything right. But I've made so many mistakes over the years. It's like, well, there's probably still more hidden in there somewhere that I'll uncover on my own. But
Yeah, I mean, there's just-
I think they do. They may not admit it, but I think they do. Yeah.
I think the more you know,
They have higher expectations.
that too.
Yeah.
But the more you know about how they work, the more terrified you are that something's going to go wrong.
Yep. I remember asking Kazi one time, we were talking about one of those monster, engines that he builds for the
offshore
pro stockers.
boats?
Yeah, the giant motors. And I at the time had been reading something about piston speed, and I said, I started doing calculations on his piston speed, and it got really scary. And I called him. I said, how do you deal with that? And he goes, I just don't look at it.
Yeah,
I just don't care.
Every pro mod driver, in NHRA doesn't care about piston speed.
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
on paper,
yeah.
none of those engines should be
Shouldn't
able
work.
to do what
No,
they
it
were.
should not work.
Aluminum rods help. There's things that help,
Yes,
but
yes.
mathematically, it shouldn't work.
Yeah, it's insane.
Which to me just says we don't understand it well enough to say what should and shouldn't work.
Yes, because the voodoo only holds so long.
Right. Well,
Yeah.
you told me years ago, the moment you do something and you didn't know it was wrong, it'll be fine. When you do it and you did know it's wrong,
How many times that has burned me?
Yep.
And I don't know why that is. I can't explain it mechanically. Why did we get away with doing the stuff that we did that we didn't know was wrong? But once you know, you can't come back.
Right.
Because it never works. It never works. Yeah.
well,
So-
I mean, the best example of that I've ever experienced is my buddy built a Dart in kind of, I guess it would be early college years, and it was a 400 low deck B series, and he put 906 heads on it, did all the things that you do to a Mopar, you know, the hot rod parts, and it always had a clunk. It would idle. It had barely any oil. It was like 15 pounds at idle, and we just thought, it's old, and it always had a little bit of a clunk to it. Well, finally, he gets a real job. He's got a paycheck. He can build a stroker.
Yeah.
So we tear it apart. That crank was cut 10 under, but somebody put a 20 under bearing in it on all the rods. So this thing had spun every single rod journal in the engine, and he drove it to school.
Oh, my
multiple
goodness.
times. I mean, we
Yeah.
drove that thing all. It had a two-step on it. It was the first drag radial we had ever put on a car.
How did it live?
No
Ah.
clue. Had we done that
Wow.
knowing that it was the
No,
wrong
no,
thing?
absolutely not. It
Would have made it out of the
It
driveway.
windowed. Yeah, exactly.
I mean, every
That's
single rod journal had looped multiple times.
almost
in
like
the rod
it clears
housing.
itself.
It became a roller bearing at that point. It was just spinning. But for
How
whatever
much
reason,
metal went through that motor?
Oh, tons. But it never gave up the ghost.
Wow.
Isn't that kind of
Wow.
funny?
Yeah, it is. That should never have worked.
I think that's my favorite
So the
part.
Mopar guys are looking at us and say, you know, he's a young kid, he doesn't know. We'll let this pass.
That's what it was. That's what it was.
We'll let this
Everything else on the car failed, though.
Yeah?
Everything. I mean, I can remember going to the Pomona swap meet and then the lower water hose blowing off. And, you know, it had died on the way in, so we had pushed it into the swap meet.
Yeah.
And we finally get it going again, and it's me and one of my best friends and the other friends driving the car, and then we just see this cloud of steam, and the Dart disappears. And we're like, yeah, that's Cody. That must be Cody. That poor guy, that car fought him in every way, shape, and form. But it's fun, and
Yep.
you take away something from it every time something breaks.
Right, yeah. So there's a million stories, but you're working on a Bonneville project as well.
I am, yeah. So my best friend, who was a fabricator and a very good one, he bought an old Ohio mile car. It's a third-gen Camaro.
Okay.
It's already gone over 200 miles per hour in the standing mile.
Really?
But it was such a great buy because it's already got a cage, it's got a logbook, it's got
Okay.
fire suppression, it's got a quick change axle.
Wow,
It's got
okay.
a fuel system, brakes. So
Oh.
it got us like 70% of the way to
Sure.
going to Bonneville.
There you go.
And I'm going to handle the engine program.
Okay.
He's going to do what he does and the rest of the car, and then we're going to marry the two, and we're going to
Okay.
go out, and the goal is to one day get a hat.
So what's the class?
We're going to go D class.
So what's the full class? So
altered.
it's altered?
Yep,
So
it's-
D altered?
D altered. So
Okay, D would be small displacement motor.
306 and smaller.
306 and smaller.
Yep.
Okay, so
So
this is an
that-
LS motor.
Yep, that's why I settled on the 4.8.
Okay.
Because it was the cheapest way to get in under that cubic inch
Right.
with something that had a really good cylinder head.
Uh-huh.
I mean, there are other options. The Coyote's a great option.
Sure.
But for what I do, you know, and the people I know and the parts that I have learned to work with, I think a pushrod motor is really where I'm at.
Yeah.
You know, when you get 4 cams involved, things get expensive. It's really wide.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if it would even go in between the fenders of a third-gen Camaro. It
Right.
would be close. I mean,
Yeah.
people put big blocks, so in theory it could happen.
yeah.
But I'm like, look, it's a Chevy. I speak Chevy. You know, the LS is such a great foundation.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So that's what we did. We did a video on it on Hemmings, and I wrung it out pretty good with some speed parts, and we got 474 out of it.
Really?
So that's
How-
almost
what
100
RPM?
horsepower liter. I think it
8?
peaked at about 6,900.
6,900?
Lower than you would guess.
Wow.
A lot lower than you would
Yeah.
guess.
And you made 470?
474.
Wow. So run through the parts.
Completely stock, 200,000 mile bottom end. It was about 9 to 1. And then
Okay.
it had a 706 head on it. And I did put an Edelbrock on during the test, but the Edelbrocks are really, really close.
Yeah.
It's not one of their super high end, you know, with a lot of port development work done.
Uh-huh.
It's port's a little bit better than factory. It's a much higher quality valve than factory, good spring package. So I don't think that added a ton of power.
Yeah, right.
But then we went with
And it's cathedral port because
Cathedral
it has to
port.
be.
Yep.
And the valve size is relatively small too,
Right.
under 2 inch or just
2
wide
inch.
at 2 inch.
I think it's right at 2 inch.
2 inch, yeah.
And that's
and then
a-
2 inch 155, probably something like that. I think.
Yeah, I don't think the head I have is over 2 inch.
Yeah,
even
okay.
the aftermarket
Yeah,
one, because
yeah.
it's a 3780 bore.
Right.
And
Right.
that is
right.
where I'm running into problems, because to get the power I need an intake valve that can breathe, and you can't fit one with that small bore.
Nope, it won't work.
So I'm going to have to spend money.
You're probably actually shrouded at 2-inch, probably.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
But it doesn't seem to care. I mean, to make almost 500 out of 4.8 liters is, I mean, that's
really good. Because that's 293 inches. You take the old 283s. I never tried to do a high RPM one, but you know, they were always done by right at 6,000. But you know, with production heads back in the day, you know, 40 years ago, we were lucky to make like 275.
Right.
You know, so 480 is really good.
Yeah, I mean, when you think about all the things the LS brings to the table, I've got a factory 15-degree valve angle, which is better than small blocks 23.
Sure.
Boy, the gaskets are good, which is nice.
Yes.
You know, when you come from cork, you know, all of a sudden all of these, you know, imprinted and you know,
MLS.
molded it. Oh, it's so nice. Nothing leaks, which is great.
Right.
But the cylinder head is just so dang good. We ran a fast.
And what intake did you run?
So we ran a fast LSXR, was the one we made the most power on.
Okay.
But it was only 9 up from a Gen 4 truck intake.
Really?
The truck intakes are so dang good. Ugly as sin, but they actually work really, really well.
So Gen 4 truck intake.
Gen 4 truck engine, which my understanding is that is basically a Trailblazer SS.
Okay, right.
But we traded a bunch of low end for 9 up top, which is probably good for Bonneville.
Yeah.
But I was blown away. Like this not only is this head good, this intake is good. That we did a comp. It was a 236, 242.
Okay.
Which doesn't sound like a lot of cam, but when you have no valve pocket.
Yes,
that is
you got to
lot
be careful.
Of
Yeah, so you're very close on valve to piston clearance.
Yeah.
Ideally, it would have been a forged piston with a valve relief.
And it will be at some point.
At some point.
But I built that engine 4 times in every configuration we were going to run it in, just to make sure. And there was a point where that valve was kissing, and I had to play with the degree wheel, move that cam back a little bit, and then pull it off. Okay. Clay looks good. We're okay. But I mean, even in the head change portion of the dyno video, you can see where that carbon is wiped off the top of the piston.
Wow.
So it's chasing it pretty
right
good.
There, yeah.
And it's okay for dyno time in a controlled environment, but I'm not going to run it like that in the car.
Yeah.
I'm going to put a valve pocket in. I'm going to put a piston with a real dome so we can hopefully squeeze a little bit more
Get some
out.
compression.
But
I because you're giving up a lot there.
I am. It's about 9 to 1. That's it.
and you know, you're going to 9. You're going to go into 4,000 feet, so your density altitude is going to be God knows. You know, it depends on the weather, but you know, it's going to be tough to make it breathe.
It's racing up the side of a mountain. People don't realize that about Bonneville. So they're like, oh, it's flat. No, it's high.
No,
it's
high.
really high.
Yeah.
So there's not a lot of oxygen in the air.
Yeah.
But we're trying to kind of figure out what we want to do with it, and it just clicked for me why E85 makes power. I've asked people for years, like, why does E85 make power? Should I run E85? Can you explain it to me? Because you look at the fuel, and it's got less BTU than gasoline.
Right.
It's the stoic. That's why it makes power.
Well, that, and I think that
cooling effect.
Cooling, yep.
Yeah,
I think because it makes everything denser. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
But I mean,
and a little bit of octane, too, which doesn't hurt.
Right. If you were building for it and optimizing for it, that octane is huge, and that's going to separate the lines even further from gas. But
that makes it a fuel class then, doesn't it?
It does.
Yeah.
It does.
So you're going to stay with gasoline for now?
I think we actually might go to the fuel class.
Really?
I'd like to have a motor I can do both in.
Is the record easier to achieve?
Yes.
Oh,
it's still
really?
way too. It's easy is a relative term, right?
Yeah, well, yes.
200 is easier than 300, but it's still going to be a hell of a record to chase.
What's the record? Do you know?
I believe it's 260 something.
260.
Yeah. So I mean, it might take us years to get there, but it's something I want to do.
Okay.
We had actually started building a mini truck. And then we watched a whole bunch of mini trucks crash at El Mirage and Bonneville, and we thought to ourselves, maybe this is just a really bad shape to try to shove through the air at 200. It's kind of wing-shaped. And then the Camaro popped up, and we're like, oh, this takes years off of the process.
Especially as a pre-built car. That makes it so much easier. Yeah,
We're thinking E85 might be the fuel we attempt to experiment with and get.
All right.
But it's
but you could then go to methanol if you wanted to, because there's power with methanol over ethanol. I don't think there's a ton of power there.
Yeah,
but
it just when you get to methanol, you're what, 6 to 1 stoichiometric?
Something like that. Yes, right around 7, I think, because it's half of gasoline. Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So then I've always thought, like, well, you're filling, because when I did a test back in the day with a friend's mechanically injected 572. It was a 16 to 1, fuel altered motor, and we ran it on gas and we ran it on methanol, and it made more torque on methanol, but it made more power on gas. And I kind of attributed that to, and someone might tell me I'm wrong, and I might be, but when you have a 6 to 1 stoichiometric ratio, half of what's going in is fuel, and that fuel displaces
Yes.
oxygen.
Yeah, it will displace the air. That's one reason why the Gen 5 motors, direct injected engines, can make more power, because the fuel's no longer taking up air.
Right.
Airspace, essentially. Yeah.
So it's
there's a
such-
volume there of fuel.
Right.
It's taking up space. Yeah.
And because it burns at a lower stoic, you can shove more fuel in per unit of fuel, and that's
Right.
where the power portion comes from.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
That took me a minute to really click, because I kept asking, and people were like, "Oh, it's cooling effect." I'm like,
Yeah.
"There's got to be more to it." And
Yeah.
and then there
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I could nerd out on this stuff all day. I love learning this and then going out and trying to do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's fun.
Yeah. That's great. Yeah. So on gasoline, what's the record? Do you know, for your class?
I
D?
don't know off the top of my head. I think
Probably a little
everything in our
slower.
class is over 200.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I mean, we're gonna go out and look pretty slow, I think, for the first couple years. But
But you're going to learn, and there's
Yeah.
so much more to racing at Bonneville than just building a car and going out there.
Right.
I mean, I can't speak to it because I've never done it, but my buddy Will Hansel and four other friends now, that's what they want to do, and we're going to be working with Keith Turk's car.
yeah, it's a
So,
life goal.
Yeah.
I mean, for me
yeah,
and my best friend,
yeah.
we want to do it. Goals to get a hat. I'll be happy even if I don't get a hat.
Yeah,
If I just get
yeah.
to drive and if I get to look at that same floating mountain that Mickey Thompson stared at,
Yep.
that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah,
I go to
yeah.
my grave going, at least I tried.
I put an effort into it, you know, and that's a lot of it, you know, because you're just doing it for the experience, because there's no cheering crowds, there's
Right.
no prize money, there's no trophy girl, there's
Yeah,
none of that
it's such
stuff.
a unique diehard group
It
of
really is.
enthusiasts.
It
You know,
really
you
is.
look at what Bill Lattin and that group do, go up there multiple times a year to get the salt ready, and it's so much work, and
Yeah.
it's very few people understand it enough to appreciate
Yep.
it.
And I think that ties in with almost every other interview we've done so far here, probably since the beginning. It's all about the passion, right?
Yeah.
Because people look at this and go, I don't understand why you do this. And it's like, I can't really explain it to you, you know, not just Bonneville, anything to do with cars, you know,
Right.
because it's enormously expensive. It takes up all this time. It's frustrating as hell,
Yeah.
you know, and yet you still do it. Why do you do that? It's like, if I have to explain it to you,
You're not gonna
going to
get
get it. You're just
Yeah.
not going to get it. You have to be, like either the light goes on or something happens to you inside, and all of a sudden it's like, yeah, I get it. I understand.
Yeah,
It's
I mean, there's days where it feels like work, but most of the time, you know, you get to be around a cool car, you get to be here, and you get to see a cool engine or do something cool, and you're like, man, I'm just happy to be here. You know, one of these days I might have to grow up and get a real job, but for right now,
Well, let's hope
I'm
not.
just
Let's
happy
hope
to
not.
still be
'Cause
here.
you know, and even just driving down the freeway when I used to live out here, and I look over and, you know, it's like, you're missing out. You know, you guys are not, not into cars. You're missing out on something, you know?
Yeah.
Or it's like, you know, it's how boring your life is. A friend of mine once was at a party, and, you know, he was the only car guy there, so there's nobody to talk to, right? And he starts to ask this one guy, he says, so, what are you passionate about? And the guy had to think for about 5 or 10 seconds, and finally goes, Seinfeld. Oh, my God. You know, it's like, okay.
Like that's fine, great show. Not
Yeah.
something to really center your life around.
Yeah, exactly.
Unless you're Jerry,
Yeah, exactly.
and even he likes cars. So
And even he likes cars. That's right. So yeah, I think that's what this, you know, our little podcast is all about, is just being passionate about cars and talking to people about cars and learning some of these stories. Is just great. So
Yeah.
I appreciate you coming on board
Thanks,
with
Jeff.
us. This has been a lot of fun.
always a pleasure, buddy.
Yeah, okay.
Thanks for
So
having me.
We're going to wrap this thing up. So I want to thank our sponsor, ARP-bolts.com, and of course our friends at Grand National Roadster Show, John Buck and Kevin Doyle. They gave us this opportunity, and if you like what we're doing here, just keep watching and we'll keep telling you more stories.